So I'm going to share the screen with some pictures of your mother and you'll explain.
Yes.
Okay.
Today is my mother's yard site. And that was my mother when she was dating my father. She was 18 years old. And she got married soon after that. You can see hats were a big thing at the time. And she made me who I am. The next one is a picture of her with me at one of my museum exhibitions. She really, she was the largest influence on my life. And she loved the fact that I wanted to be an artist. She believed in doing your own thing. I love this necklace she's wearing. She had an Israeli designer, Sarah Einstein, who I think is a brilliant designer. All her clothing were either made by Eileen Fisher or by artists, her earrings as well. And then the third picture, after she was 60, she decided she wanted to start running marathons. She did 3 marathons in her 60s and 70s. Anyway, I just wanted to think of her today and say that she loved art and she taught me about loving art. And I just wanted to remember her on this day. So thank you for letting me do that. Okay, so we're going to start with an artist who has really influenced one of the greatest artists alive today. She's in her 90s. Her name is Yayoi Kusama. And this is a show she has on right now. This is one of her rooms. It's up in New York as we speak. So you can see the people on the bottom are walking through the exhibition. And the room is around 12 feet by 12 feet. And that's how you walk in, through that little window door. And this is a very differently installed exhibition. These are all small pieces. And you can see all the different paintings that she did. She puts down a base color like blue, and on these over here, orange. So then she draws on top of a colored canvas. Very different way to exhibit when you have so many paintings on one wall. I love the way this looks, but it's more, it doesn't move. On the computer, it is moving. In the show, that's the way it looks, yeah. Oh. Amazing that she's in her mid-90s. So this is the first time the museum, the gallery did an exhibition like this, that you can actually get really close to see everything. There's a very long waiting list to go see the show.
Is that, Toby, you want to continue or you want
Yes,
to?
I want to continue because we're going to go into the next room that are sculptures.
Okay.
We'll go ahead a little.
Okay.
The next room, you know what, if you move it up a little, you'll see, oh, that's much better now. Now you won't see it moving. That's so much better.
Yeah, no, it's still.
And you can watch this on your own later, but I want to move up a little.
Yeah.
You see, this is the room that you're going into. This is a beautiful large sculpture. You can see the people walking through it. And the gallery is huge. It's presented more like a museum show than a gallery show. And she never did this before, but now they're signed, which I think is fascinating. And I think they're doing that because they know she's very old and they're not going to be many more shows like this. Now go towards the end. There's one more space at the end that's really gorgeous. That's another room of big flowers. Take a look at these. And you can see she signed those also, which is very new. I never saw her sign those. I don't know, Sophia, have you ever seen earlier work signed?
No, I think it's because she's become so commercial.
Right, that's why. So now let's go to see the show. I hope you all enjoyed her. I'm curious how many of you knew her. The show that is in the gallery. I'm in love with this. If you know anything about color theory, I brought my students from university there last week, and I said, what's beautiful to me is she's now moved in between Calder and Keith Haring. I mean, there's a real interesting play of using complementary colors, pure color, and they're just joyful.
Toby, there's questions. What are they made from? Do you know?
Thank you. Of course, this is my business. Yes. They're made out of, these are made out of bronze, and other ones are made out of fiberglass. And they're made to be outdoors. You'll see, look, you can even see, go up a little, it'll say, move up on that one. It says underneath, sometime on some of there, there is stainless steel and urethane paint. The big yellow one is bronze. And some of the other ones are fiberglass, but I just love this. I'm so excited. Go press the little thing. Yeah, look at that. They are so much fun. It's great for little kids. It's great for older people. The big question that people have asked me is, will the color stay fast? And that is a big question. And you see that at the Israel Museum with that famous Klaus Oldenburg, and the apple really changed. If you remember, it's a bright red apple. So that is one of the problems with work like this, that after 50 years or 30 years in the sun, the color will change quite a bit.
Do you know, are they sold? Are they going to be exhibited?
They're sold. They're sold. Look at this. This is the one that blew me away. It reminds me of Richard Serra's Smiling. Yeah. You know, Richard Serra's pieces are very intense. But watch this woman. I love that she's wearing all white. They set it up beautifully. And it feels like it's like Alice in Wonderland. I think she has a great sense of humor and a great sense of irony. I hope you liked it. I'd love to hear in the chat what you all think. Keep going, keep going. I want to show you some of the paintings because they're so, I mean, I like the scale. And they feel like they're going to fall over. Those are bronze.
Okay, paintings. Let me see other paintings here.
So right there after this.
After this.
That's the room. There are the paintings. Now, this to me, I would love to hear your comments. I love the way they're installed, but some people complained that they really couldn't see the paintings. Well, you have to go back because you went back.
It's not too. By the way, when
There it
we
is,
had-
there it is, there it is. That I
we
love
had
this. I'm
exhibition
so
in
curious
Tel
to
Aviv
hear.
University, in the Tel Aviv Museum of Yaya Kusama a year and a half ago. They were also installed like this as a group together. So maybe it's something that she's doing now.
Well, what I think is this is all part of that same body of work. So Tel Aviv, these last 4 museum shows are all part of this new body of work. I think the reason she's doing it is, I feel terrible to say that because there's so many people waiting to buy her work. And that way it can say, I bought a piece that was in the show. And I think that's the reason, because I like them better when you see each one alone. I understand the reason for it, but when you see each one alone, they look like gems, and otherwise it's different. Thank you. I love the work. That's a good one, Barbara Brown. I think she's a genius. And she also has been very influenced by Aboriginal art. She's very influenced by Latin American art. I think some of them look so much like the graffiti artists, but the way she plays with color is why I'm in love with her. Her sense of color and harmony. She obviously knew everything about color theory. And I think she's doing much smaller work because she's so old and it's hard for her to use a big brush. And yes, does she do a lot of her own work still? Yes, she does. All right, let's go. That's one show down. Let's go to the next. Anyway.
Now this we've seen.
Oh, that's how you walk in. Let people see how you walked in. That was good.
This one?
Yeah, right there. You can see people walking into the space. There it is. Watch him go in. I think that's a great experience. Very different than most of her other installations.
Okay.
Good. Let's go to the next exhibit.
Find the next one. Yeah. Now we have this one. The next one is.
I love Luke Teumann. Brilliant artist. He smokes cigarettes, unfortunately, so ignore the cigarettes.
Well, we're in my office, actually, not in my studio, so to speak.
Yeah, he doesn't speak loud. Can you put on the thing on the bottom so you can hear it?
Based in Antwerp, Belgium. My father was Belgian, my mother was Dutch, and I cannot go into the entire history of this country because it's going to take too long, but there's been twice a collaboration from the Flemish side with the Germans because of the fact that they felt as a national entity more closer to the Germans than to the French-speaking side. And when I was 5, there was a family gathering, and all of a sudden there's a photo album that sort of props up, and one of the photographs falls out, and it's the uncle after which I'm named who's doing the Hitler salute, and the whole thing explodes. The marriage of my father and my mother was not a happy marriage. Always during dinner, there was this element, of course, of the unhappy marriage, but also the history that was like combined with it. So it became like a phobia in a sense. So therefore, already from early stage, this interest was sort of like unconsciously brought it into my consciousness. It became clear to me that much more tones, much more than color, create a difference within how you memorize imagery or how inadequate your memory works. And also it has an impalling effect upon size and format and all those things. All the paintings have quite decisive format. They're all different. They're never the same. They're not standard, so to speak. Which is important because that all has to do with, yet again, this inadequacy within the memory, which I think is quite important because that makes the power of the image. I not always paint from photos and film stills. There are, it's a more complex thing. nowadays I think photography is not so much an impulse effect on how I think or how I produce or how I conceptualize work. It is just part of the toolbox. What I do think, though, is that for me, the most important effect is much more the element of the media image. Because I grew up as a part of a television generation, which means that you have a sort of manco, you have a sort of impoverishment in terms of experience, but you have a sort of like abundance in terms of imagery. And therefore the idea to rework these images and to create or to appropriate them and to reinstall them in a different sense, because I mean a painting of course has a different time span, it has a different physicality also because it's made by hand, in this case by me, and therefore already it's altered within the perception as you see it, or as you, for example, as a viewer would measure your distance between that and the imagery, or how you would recollect the imagery. I mean, because of course we all know that our memory is inadequate, but by making it more physical, it becomes even more inadequate. I think painting is always about what is not there, basically. That's why I say it has a different time.
So now we're going to see the show. I wanted you to see 3 in a row of very different artists. We're starting with Kusama, then we go to Luc Tuymans, and then Avedon. Now, Luc Tuymans, I'd love to know, does anyone here know him? Sophia, did you know his work? I can't hear you.
I did not know his work. No.
All right, so he is very, very famous in Europe, and he's become very famous in America. He has a cult following, but he's not as known in the world, but people are obsessed with him. I don't have any students by the time they're in 3rd year who don't want to have a Luc Tuymans, catalog. So the work is very beautiful, but very, very, very intense. And he works from photographs that he takes, and he plays with them, and he very often looks at images through a computer and then blows them up so that you really can't see what you're seeing, but you have the memory of that event. Are you able to get to those images? Or
Yes, there we go. Can you see?
Yeah, I love that. That's the image. If you want to buy me a present, I think it's only $500,000. You can buy it for me. It's like when you go to a picture and you blow it up and blow it up and blow it up, it almost looks like an alien. Do you see what I mean by that?
It's very German.
Very German. Yes, very German. And when you walk into the gallery, that's what you see. It's, there's something scary and eerie about it. Let's go to the next one. So he plays games with you. In other words, he has a sense of humor. You don't always know what he's trying to say, but you look at it for a while, you get to see it. Go to the next one. I'm going to show you one that's so funny. I mean, he has some that really are a sense of humor. Now, this is the one that I love beyond belief. How many of you know who that man is sketching on the moon? Anyone know who that is? Anyone know who Bob Ross is? How many of you know who Bob Ross is? So somebody who knows who Bob Ross is, I'm going to ask Judy. Would you tell everyone a little about Bob Ross? Can you get on unmute?
I got to unmute her. 1 second.
Oh.
Okay, just 1 second. I got to ask Judy. Judy, which Judy? I've got 2 here.
Stala. If it's too hard, I'll do it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem.
All right,
because
not to worry. So what I love is, and Judy, you'll let me know if I said it right. This is like a guilty pleasure of most young artists. And what I love is there's not one art student that I have that comes from China who doesn't know who Bob Ross was. He was on a television show on Channel 13 that did something called Happy Paintings. And I can't tell you how many young artists I know learned from him And here he is doing a happy painting of the
Yeah.
moon. That's Bob Ross. Here it is. Here, Toymans follows the art historical trope of paintings by artists' work as this, and he goes through what's funny and what's life. It's called The Joy of Painting, and it's from YouTube. And what I love about him, he goes to Velasquez and he shows you high and low. I know you only for a short time, Sophia, but I think you would love Luc Tuymans because he's very smart. And I love this idea of a non-serious artist together with one of the most serious artists and plays games with you and shows you that, hey, just like most people love milk chocolate, even though you're supposed to say you like dark chocolate, I know many, many, many people, including myself, who loves milk chocolate. So I think there's something to that. This is another image. He plays with how you perceive what you're actually seeing, whether you see it from a screen or you see it on TV or you see it through a window. And it's all about the way you interpret what you see, the realness or the non-realness. I am so obsessed with his work. I wish, of all the shows today that I wish I could take you to, it would be this and Avedon. Look at this. It's just so beautifully, and I would call it articulated, which means it's making it clear how it's painted. The guy can paint anything he wants, but he sometimes gives you less information and sometimes more information. Let's go to the next one. So look at the whole show. I mean, it's that one. You see that it looks like a barn. That many people loved the most in the show. I liked it. It wasn't my favorite. And on that one, that is one of those things that cover up over a train. It looks like a barn, but it's going through a mountain. And on the bottom of the image is all the images that the person who's looking at that on a screen sees. So you see it all the way on the bottom. It's all the, so if you were looking at that, and you would see all the other images that are going on. So what he does for you is he plays with you and says, hey, first it looks like a barn. Well, really not a barn. It looks like a train is going through it. Well, I'm looking at other things on the computer as well. And he's playing with how you perceive and understand things. If anyone has any questions, I'd love to answer. Go to the next. I love all of these images. The scale is fascinating, and he plays with how you're perceiving what you're looking at.
Somebody asked why we said it looks very German. So why don't you explain?
Okay, thank you for, well, you can say it and I will add to what you say, but I know what I feel, but I'd love to hear what you say because you're smart
Well,
too.
it just reminds of many other German artists and photographers. Let's say Tillmans. It also reminds me of very, photographers, and also, of course, the German painter. Ansel
Kiefer or Gerhard
not
Richter.
only Richter. I think it's very towards what Richter did in a certain part of his career.
Yes.
And also other German painters. So that's why we said it's in a German tradition of painting from let's say the second half of the 20th century.
So
you can recognize it.
Now I love what the person wrote. Thank you. That they wrote, each painting looks so different than the other. Thank you for saying that. And that is true. And what he loves to, I love those telephones. He did a whole series of telephones. Why I think he's so German is he's constantly teaching you what to think about. That's what I feel like I grew up in a German Jewish household. It's very much, look how smart I am. And I'm not putting it as a put down. It's the truth. Look at how smart I am. Listen to this. Look at this. It's very subtle education. But I will tell you, next time you're on a computer and you're looking at many pictures, you're going to think of him. And if you ask me what makes a great artist is if you now think about things that you see in real life and you realize that's what he does. So I want you to do a little homework on that. We're going to go to the next show because I'm watching my time and I'm scared. If you like anything, I believe you can ask me questions and I am not upset if you email me later. Just get my email from Ari and I'll answer.
Yeah.
Now, this next show is the most crowd-pleasing show you're going to see for years. Now, this is before you start. These are Avedon images.
Blumenfeld was bringing an experiment.
Yes, sorry, you can go ahead. Yes.
Yes, this is a younger artist who's trying to show you how hard it is to do an Avedon picture. It's brilliant video. We're not seeing all 8 minutes of it. I'll show you a few minutes of it. I'd like you to see it on your own time, but I wanted to show you, I worked very hard when I picked the videos to see, but this is showing you how hard it is to be Avedon. Now, this is a young...
Mental-eyed fashion imagery. A young American photographer, Richard Avedon, was refreshing classic styling with energy and creative spirit. Daring, stylish and ambitious, Avedon's pictures reflected the optimism of 50s America and turned him into the first celebrity fashion photographer. His status was confirmed by Funny Face, a film based on Avedon and starring Fred Astaire, and one of Avedon's favourite models, Davima.
This time, let's see if we can't get rid of her. I mean, keep in mind that you're a woman who thinks. Now, that is a piece of sculpture by Itsubuchi. I want you to look at it as if you understand it, as if it understands you. See?
In New York, I caught up with a great friend of Richard Avedon and legendary photographer in her own right, Lillian Bassman.
Hi,
how are
lovely to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
I'm a big fan.
Thank you very much.
Is this your new book?
It's not a book yet. It's on the way.
It's a layout.
It's a layout.
Bassman was one of the great experimenters in fashion photography and remarkably is still working.
So it's, you know. That's Lauren Bacall.
That's Lauren Bacall.
Yeah.
What's Lauren Bacall like?
She was no problem at all. Everybody said she's going to be so difficult. But
Does it feel like a diary?
I can't remember names, but I remember every
moment,
every situation in which I photographed. All these people who were my friends and I knew well, the models, are gone.
In this golden age of fashion photography, Lillian worked for Vogue's main rival, Harper's Bazaar, alongside art director Alexei Brodovich. Art directors play a big role in the shaping of the fashion image, and Brodovich was one of the legends.
He was marvelous. He would always say, think of a new way of doing something.
Well, what I want to say is I want to go to the next one. I want you to meet that. He's not alive anymore. So I love having you here.
You're a modern version of
now, this is fascinating.
Shot and bodies. And I'm really embarrassed to say the rest of the room gasped and it was a fashion moment, and I was 19 and I had no idea what he was talking about or that he had taken the image. But upon seeing it, I thought it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. Really lovely.
So now they're reenacting a famous Avedon picture. Now, this is brilliant. This is my present to all of you.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're going to retake a picture.
The artwork was something bigger than me, I have to tell you. Waited 13 years for this opportunity. I'm feeling eerily competitive.
Model, and she's always wanted to pose in this. These are going to be elephants, and now you're not allowed to put chains on elephants. Here they come. I am so happy to show you this. This is my gift to all of you.
Not look quite so nervous.
I'm in love with this. I know that photograph. Yes, it's famous.
Right, we're ready to go, guys.
But this is not the original photograph. They're redoing it without chains on the elephant's legs.
Just move to your right a little bit, honey.
And I want you to understand how hard it is to do this. Sophia, this is a present to you too. I love this video.
And I just
all right, now you've gotten the idea. We don't have to go through the whole thing. I want you later, if you like my lecture, go back to it later and watch the whole thing.
Okay.
That's great.
All right, now let's go to the show.
Do you know that's the first time
For sure. We have to continue to watch it. Here we go.
No, we don't have time to see everything.
I know. But what
But
I will.
So
I'm definitely-
this show, I want to say to all of you, this is in memory of my mother, who went with me to all these shows as a little boy. This is Avedon at his best. He is very much like Annie Leibovitz. During his lifetime, not everyone loved him. Many people said he was too commercial. I loved him. He did the very famous Beatles cover. That is the very famous time sequence of Marilyn Monroe. He did Tina Turner. He did all the major people. He did high and low. He did poor people. He did rich people. That's the famous elephant that you see there. That's one of his most iconic pieces. That is the Beatles in the back room. Look at the way this show, go back to the next one. That is the famous, I have the White Album. That came from the Beatles album. Anyone remember this? Are you all big influence on me as a kid? I had that up in my room for many years. He did the very famous, he has a show on now at the Met. He did all the big jazz singers, and he did a lot of famous musicians. This is very provocative. I still remember when it was shown. He was very close to Andy Warhol, and he went to the factory and did those famous images of a lot of the actors in that famous film. And you can see some of them are dressed up as women and men, but they're all men because they all have penises. It's a very iconic image, and that is he put himself into the pictures sometimes. And you see the black line around the photograph, and that was to show you that he didn't crop anything. Let's go to the next. I wish I could walk you through these. These are some of the most beautiful. You see on the bottom there is Malcolm X. I mean, he went from high, low, famous, not famous. He did the very famous piece for Calvin Klein with Brooke Shields. No one can get closer to me than my Calvins. I saw on the internet the end line is Tina Turner. Go back for a minute. Oh, and that's the Dalai Lama. But go back one. The last photograph all the way at the right, that's Tina Turner. And when Tina Turner died, a lot of people posted this image and said she was an amazingly great woman. I don't even know what to say, how much I love him. He did, look at those Beatles. And again, he did famous people and not, he did a lot of fashion, like there's a nude woman with a snake. I think that was in Vogue. He had really guts to do whatever he wanted. And I also love that you see that famous fashion shoot all the way at the end of the gallery. And on the two sides are just two regular people that he photographed that he was interested in. He liked going to, oh, there's the Calvin Klein. There's the famous one of Brooke Shields on the left on the bottom. I mean, I took my class there. We were supposed to be there for 15 minutes. After a half an hour, no one wanted to leave. Because first of all, he understood scale. He understood when he used color and when he used black and white. He understood the idea. Do you all see that black line around the photographs? That shows you that it's a full 2x2 slide. And so there's nothing cropped. I hope you all like this. I'd love to hear what you, I don't even know what to say. I'm so intrigued by how brilliant he was. And yeah, that image is so great too. And now we can go through the bottom. You see the show. Please watch the end of the video on your own. That's the Marilyn that I love so much.
Amazing. Fantastic. Okay, I'll send out the links. Okay, guys, don't worry.
Don't worry. And you should ask me, and I would love if you all had time, I'd love you to email me what are your favorite shows of the day, and then you can tell me what you didn't like. Now I'm going to the next show.
Yes.
The next show is a very different show, and I love that show as well. Very different, very hands-on. Hernan Boss.
Dream
He moved to Detroit from Miami. The reason I'm showing you this, I want you to show you how he paints. They're beautiful paintings. And he's collaging and painting at the same time.
I always have this one painting after I finish a show that I call the getting back into the groove painting. So this painting just started throwing paint at it, and in the last series I just started every painting with a coat of silver under the whole painting to sort of give it this weird luminosity. So I decided to try and do a similar thing but more in a Renaissance traditional way. So the whole bottom base of the painting is all gold leaf or imitation gold leaf, just sort of trying to play with that. What happens when you paint over gold leaf, the colors just pop in different ways. Working with the gold leaf has been fun, but at the same time it becomes eliminated very quickly. Like the paint, as soon as it touches it, it loses a lot of the shimmer, whereas the silver paint base coat really maintains a sort of luminosity that I like about the paintings. The gold leaf, it seems to cancel it more quickly, so I might go back to silver, but I'm using imitation gold leaf, so maybe if I use the real stuff, it might make a difference, you know, the way the water resists it, things like that.
I just want you to watch how different artists change how they see what they do.
I'm solving a lot of issues in this painting that I'll resolve necessarily in other paintings. Not that I don't think it's a finished painting in itself. I consider it kind of a one-off piece, like, which are kind of fun to do sometimes because when you work in series a lot, it kind of gets to be daunting and you kind of lock yourself into this mode of working within a series. So it's nice occasionally to just step back and make a painting that has no relation to anything else. For me, it's that weird little moment where you're just like, do whatever you want.
He's into very subtleness, and I thought I wanted to have him one actor, not next to Luc Tuymans, because I didn't want you to compare them too much, but you can understand how they're both thinking. And you'll see that there's a green paint underneath everything. And I want you to understand that's how artists work in series. And you see the camera there because he also is a photographer.
It kind of started as a photographer, and not having the facilities and the place to do it is basically why I stopped doing it. And one of the benefits of moving to this new place in Detroit is I have excess amount of space, and so I built a darkroom in the basement, and having your own darkroom really inspires you to actually get in there and, you know, not waste time and all the effort you did to put it together. But in general, like, I kind of resigned myself in the last few years. In the past, I would always say, I'm not just a painter, I'm not just a painter. But now I'm just like, okay, fine, I'm a painter. Like, it's okay, I can own that, you know? Like Oprah's life lessons, I can own this, you know? So I'm fine with just being I'm a painter, that's fine. But doesn't mean I can't do other things. And I think for me, it's having that extra time to an extent in Detroit and a little more freedom. It's led to me to be able to do
similarities between
side projects that, and I've actually started showing them for the first time ever. Like, I've shown photography since 2001, and I started showing it a little over a year ago for the first time since then. So it's been it's also my least expensive work. So the market hasn't quite caught up with my excitement.
Right, now we're going to go see the show. I just wanted you to see a background, and you're going to see how different this exhibition
so it doesn't
is.
really matter.
I hope you're enjoying, and you should let me know if you like what I do. I try and build everything up so that you see all the similarities and the differences. Now, wasn't it interesting to understand that he's a photographer and a painter? When you actually see this show, it is so strange. And he sets them up. I want to just talk about it. So you can see in this image, he has a kid with his photograph on the back of the milk container of missing children. He's a very psychological painter. I love his work. That again, this to me is so funny. He's building this great popsicle sculpture. He has the glue there, but he's eating a popsicle himself. Do you understand what I mean? So he plays with you. So what I wanted to say, and I'm so interested, Sophia, if you agree with me, this guy is not German. He's too funny. And and what I mean is he comes from Cuba, lived in Florida, now he's got a great sense of humor. You know, I like the way first of all, he paints like a dream. I mean, he can do anything he wants. And if you get up close, the surface is beautiful, but he plays with the whole idea of what it means to make a photographic image. I love his socks. I mean, everything he does is just exquisite. And the way he sets up the floor, I mean, every little thing in there. So this show, because in New York, it's up for a month. And you can see how big all the paintings are, similar sizes. Look at the guy. And I thought this was funny because I gave a lecture downtown. You see the man picking up pumpkin heads, but they're really people. So you remember that other one we saw of the balloon of Luke Tiemann with a, anyway, I think his sense, and all the way at the back wall, you'll see it's like an angel, and on the floor, it's a devil. So when you're a child, I was one of those kids who loved lying down and making a snow angel, but if you lie down too long, you get pneumonia. There are other ones that he did. He's dressed up as a harlequin. I mean, they're funny, weird. They're definitely weird, but there are a lot of sense of humor also. There's another one where he's going to a Xerox machine and playing games with you. So everything is a game. This is one of the galleries that I love that they do in the front of the gallery. You see on the wall there, it's written down everything about the show. It says his background and what he does. So you walk into the gallery and you see that first. So it's a beautiful show. I'm happy to have just taken you there. I believe my goal is to show you as many exhibitions that if you like the shows, you go back and do your homework on the artist. I picked videos that add to the show because I want you to understand that an artist is not only about one event, it's about a whole career. Everything builds on the other work that the artist has done. All right, let's go to the next show. I hope I'm not going too quick, but I have so much I want to show you. Mm-hmm. Now, Sarah is the next artist whose work I also love. It was a much younger artist, and this is a very funny.
Oh, it jumped. 1 second.
Oh, you jumped. It's all right. That's a great show too.
Yeah,
you want to do that one next? Let's do that one. I love that show too.
Okay, you want to do this and then we'll go back to Sarah?
Why not? Because this is very interesting because the way he builds up the material is fascinating. Very conceptually similar.
For a long time, I've been interested in how landscape is pictured. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest gave me a deep love of the mountains and the woods. How to negotiate that space, has been a lifelong passion. The images are an extension of a long interest in 19th century European and American landscape painting, everywhere from Caspar David Friedrich to Thomas Moran to Bierstadt. And then those images, those art historical images, are spliced into photographs that I take of the windshield from our car getting washed or from a dead tree that I see on a hillside. Those things are fused together in Photoshop, and then I take that image into a 3D program. Once it gets to the point where we're etching the piece on the laser of the CMYK reductive process, we figured out how to use the laser to remove color, leaving dots behind. We're simply taking material away. It creates like a sort of ghost of an image over the bas-relief. The desire is to make images that are at once recognizable as Earth-like, but at the same time creating something that is extraterrestrial. The success or failure of an artwork, for me, is really in the process. The process is really like an opportunity for something magical to happen.
So now let's look at the images. I hope you found that fascinating. Oh, we will do that video and then do that?
No.
Oh.
It's too confusing. I just, it just comes out here. You know, I have only seen sculptures of Matthew Day Jackson. It was interesting to see his paintings.
Well, I think he's brilliant. I love his work. What I find so interesting is he is very theoretical in a funny way, like Luc Tuymans, but he's much less, he doesn't take himself that seriously. I mean, he's just telling you how he does everything. These are, when you get up to them, they're beautifully articulated. You think of Bierstadt, you think of Coles, you think about the great American painters, but he's moving it together with a three-dimensional collage, and he's using computers to get rid of anything he doesn't want there. So it's very, this is the Matterhorn after Bierstadt. So I find, and we're seeing other artists that are looking at, and that's what I love about Luc Tuymans, he's looking at other people and saying, hey, I find this interesting, but watch what I can do with this. So in other words, it's like what I'm trying to do with all of you is let you understand that artists are not singular. They get influenced by other things. And today's class was really about how artists are so influenced by other artists and how they make it their own. And I find this show to be absolutely beautiful. Now, my student said to me, but would you want to live with this? I said, nah, I don't think I would, because it's so intense and you almost can't look away with it. There's something like Bierstadt is beautiful. These are somewhat scary. I mean, it shows, it's very apocalyptic and shows you how we could be destroying the world. But they're beautifully, beautifully made. And you see that they're very layered. They're acrylic paint, urethane, they're all and a stainless steel frame. They're very heavy. Now we're going to get to the next person going back, which I thought was interesting. So that's the whole show. So you'll see how big the paintings are. They're all very large. I don't think they would work smaller, by the way. I think they need that vastness, as Bierstadt does too. I'm so curious what you all think of these. But let's go back to Sarah. Okay. Yeah, because look at how different this is. We're not going to see the whole 9 minutes. We'll see 4 minutes of it, 3 minutes.
The projects that I work on, I am rendering visible abstract structures and engaging with very new technologies to offer a poetic vision of the future. Hi, my name is Sarah Mayohas, and I am a conceptual artist and the creator of Bitcoin. In 2015, I released this project as an artwork. At the time, there was only Bitcoin, and so as a conceptual artwork, I forked Bitcoin and created my own meme currency called Bitcoin, and I backed it at a fixed rate by my artwork, 25 scrunches per coin forever. Those artworks were called speculations, and it was created using two-way mirrors that create this telescoping effect, this mise en abîme, and included my body within the image. Bitcoin is the first example of fractionalizing and tokenizing art and putting it on a blockchain. It was released before Ethereum, making it an extremely historical piece of NFT art. Bitcoin was initially about my agency as a young female creator. It was about taking trends I was seeing and taking them to an extreme, people turning themselves into brands, the financialization of art, the potential of blockchain technology. The limit of that is Bitcoin, is the artist as currency. And this also presented the idea of a social token, of allowing fans to have a piece of me and to come along my artistic journey. Normally, artists are really limited by their geography. You're doing a show in one location and how many people are gonna come see it. But now, Bitcoin can be bought by people around the world who simply have an engagement with your work through the ideas and the visuals that they can just see online.
Okay, so now you got her idea. I thought this was very funny,
remains this
and she's very talented. Wait till you see the show that she did just now. That's up. It's so beautiful. And if you like it, please go back and see the whole things and tell me about what you found interesting. So the show that's up is so powerful. I love the one all the way to the right. That's beautiful. I mean, they're all beautiful. But that one all the way to the right, the top level on the right are little screens. And you look at it, the side, it's invisible. And if you look at it, they're right there. That is so gorgeous. It's a hologram, mirrored glass, aluminum. And get up close, you can see the landscape in there. You can see her body is in there. And it constantly changes. They are beautiful. So now we'll see the other rooms. That is amazing. When you walk into the gallery, I brought my class in there and they said, Toby, it's just black. And I said, well, wait 2 minutes, because as you move, the screen keeps moving and each area changes. I just wanted you to see, and thank you for blowing that up. The images are gorgeous. I don't know if you can see her body is in there. You have fish in there. You have you can see her foot on the top one. You see her legs, and she plays with multiple images at the same time. And when you're standing there, you're transfixed. That one, I love that one that you're pressing on now, the blue. It looks like you're inside of a brain of, all these things moving. The work is gorgeous. The only bad news is it has to be in a dark room. You can't have these in a bright room. I'm watching my time. I still want to do other exhibitions, but now you saw that show. So now I want to do, I don't know if you know who how many of you know who Joel Cohen is? Joel Cohen is a very famous filmmaker. It's the Coen brothers. They're Jewish brothers from New Jersey. And he did a show. We're not going to see the whole thing, but this is brilliant. He went through an artist who I think is very famous, but not that famous, whose name is Lee Friedlander. And he went through all his archives. He's not nearly as famous as Avedon, but same basic generation. But here we're going to watch this very quick video. And what happened is, because Joel Cohen is so famous, this show has gotten a lot of attention. I don't know how many of you, do you, Sophia?
On the road making pictures or in his dark room making prints. He has never been the slightest bit interested in publicity or anything like that. All he's interested in is working. But he isn't actively constructing his pictures with some intellectual mechanism. He's looking and working. And the mind sits behind it in a very interesting, very complicated way. He's not interested in some idea. I think a lot of art today is produced by people who have an idea and try to find some physical manifestation.
I wanted him today because he's the opposite of everyone we've seen.
That's the opposite of what Lee is interested in doing. He's not the product of some educational system like the school programs today where somebody consumes the history of a medium and tries to decide where their work is going to be in relation to it. Instead, he's somebody who's worked and found out what it is. When he wakes up in the morning, all he does is work in the darkroom. If I call Lee at 9 in the morning, he's already exposed and developed a whole box of photographic paper. So
that's him.
His life and his photography are completely connected. Jazz has been tremendously important to him. I think it's necessary to realize that Lee made a living early on photographing musicians, and he photographed musicians for album covers. using a 2 1/4 camera and was very successful at it. Square color pictures, something very unlike anything else he's done. I think when he looks through a piece of glass, or really through anything, but when it's a piece of glass with reflections, I think he's understanding that there's a picture there that won't ever exist unless he makes a photograph of it. He has a tremendous sense of humor. I think a lot of it turns up in his editing. There's a lot of humor in the context in which the portrait appears, in which he appears. The shadows are all self-portraits. I don't think there's some deep meaning in Lee photographing the television screen that didn't simply come out in the pictures. I think a lot of these pictures started when he was traveling. I could be wrong, but I think a lot of them were made in hotel rooms. There was a time in there where he would do a trip, and he worried that it was going to be a rainy day, and he'd go to the person he was making a contact with that was the reason for the trip. He'd say,
rest of it's great, but you can
"It's
watch it on
raining,
your
and I
own.
might like to be able to photograph somebody in the nude. Could you figure out who I could photograph?" So the nudes developed as a...
Is that it?
That's it. I want to go to the show now. I really want to now give us a little time to discuss. I want to hear. So number one is I want you to see how small these photographs are. These are not big. So he's the opposite of, and I hope you understand, when I do a lecture, stay on that first one, I'm thinking about you seeing everything. So one of his big shticks is he puts poles in the front of everything because he wants it to be as if he was there, because he was there. Most photographers would move over, but he Dafka puts the thing right in the middle. I'm a huge fan of his. This is in San Diego, California. Now, the fact that the Coen brothers loved him so much, he's getting a lot more attention again, because the Coen brothers, like there he is again. He divides this landscape with these two, it's on a bridge, and you see the bridge part. I don't know anyone else other than him that does this. And every time I walk by somewhere, like there's a cypress tree in between these two telephone poles, and you see that little dog in the side. Again,
he's a great photographer. I think he's very genius in his ways. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I learned about him when I was in art school. I got my BFA in Hunter in photography. I love this fire hydrant with fire thing with a person behind it. My teacher was Roy DeCarava, and Roy made us all look at his work. There's another brilliant one that you're looking through on a truck, the mirror, and you see the guy standing there, and then there's a person who's walking right behind a pole again. Let's go to the, I love that foot. I mean, that is so bizarre. And this again, she's beautiful, but you don't see her face, and it's blocked. And I think he's really smart.
Yeah, I got to know him through his reflection photographs.
Right.
Those I think were
brilliant. This is one of my, go back. I love this one with the flag. I feel that says so much about, now there are all these protests in Israel, which I love. And the protesters are bringing back the flag, saying that we love, Israel, but we don't like the not democracy. And I like seeing these people walking with American flags, and it's right in the middle of her face. It's just, I think, brilliant.
Fantastic. Look at this.
Yeah. Again, same thing. It's blocking up an image that you usually think is a mistake, but it makes it really profound. Again, I love these so much. So I would like to spend, I'm still, okay, I know it's an hour and, it's only an hour and 5 minutes. Let's do a few more shots, and I'd like to spend time, look at that. Walking through, and you see the reflections, and you don't see either of their faces clearly, but you see the man walking with his bag right in the back. And remember, these are very small. These are not large. They're maybe double the size that you're seeing on the screen. And then he does images that are collages, that look like collages. And these are two images side by side. Again, gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Yeah, I love them.
Oh, this is amazing too.
Okay.
Let's go. Can we do one more artist, or you think I'm pushing it too hard? And should we?
No, of course you can. I think you can.
All right. So go to
Who do we have left?
we have 3 left, but
Oh,
go
really?
to Gagosian. Yeah.
Let me just find.
Oh, you know what we'll do? Let's do Samuel.
Oh, okay.
Jones. He did something fascinating. He uses outsides of books, law
Yes.
books, does these pieces that I think are very profound. And I would love to end with him. That makes a lot of sense. And
Okay,
then-
so let me just find it because I can see that I did not. 1 second. Here we go.
I'm a visual artist, born and raised in Marion, Indiana, and I became an artist through my undergraduate studies when I was studying communication studies. And during my last semester, I took a photography class, and the light bulb came on. It was all downhill from there. So I immediately
1 second, I gotta get my screen full screen. I don't know why it's not.
was working with photography. And at some point I took classes at the Heron School of Art and Design and started dabbling into other things like video and sculpture. And so we're pretty much mixed media now at this point. My work is abstract, visually abstract. The materials that I use sort of are directly related to the ideas that I'm referencing in the work. And then also the titles given to the work also reference those ideas. And for the most part, the object in of itself is to really pull the viewer in and sort of a catalyst for a conversation. Current mediums that I work mainly with reference books, encyclopedias, law books, medical books, even art history books. That is it for the most part, but I deconstruct them and work with them in different ways. The book covers in particular, I also work with the pages and working on pulping them and
That to
creating
me is fascinating to
objects, which is
use.
the work that I've been working on recently. For the Dahan project, I've been using some history books from Indiana, and I've been working, sort of revisited this process of making these 3-dimensional sculptures from pulped books. I chose the textbooks that in particular because I'm just they're close to home, and just referencing history in general and thinking about history in terms of history that is not highlighted, history that is left out. That was the sort of the main emphasis in using that material. In terms of the process, there's a lot of deconstruction that happens, and in that deconstruction, there's also a use of a lot of water. You use the water to break down the books, and the water is used to sort of soften the adhesive from the book covers. And then I also use lots of water in pulping the book covers as well, and the pages of the books. And I also use a sewing machine, use that in a large part of my practice when I sew the book covers together. When I first made
got
the
an
work,
idea. So that's what he does. And now you'll see the show. It's a beautiful show. And what I love is he's not using paint, but he's using pulp from books. And they are, when you look at them, that first, it's very powerful. And he talks about what law books mean. And one of my students said to me, does it bother you that he's destroying books? And I say, no, because those books would be thrown in the garbage because this is not destroying, it's making. So the image on the left, that one over there, when you get up close, he sews them together. And these are the outside parts of all these different law books. These are gorgeous to look at. And I don't know if any of you know who Kurt Schwitters is. Kurt Schwitters was a very famous collagist, but I think the work is breathtaking. And he's saying a lot about our society and about how to learn about looking at things. And I really like seeing, all the artists we looked at today are artists that are making singular thoughts. Even Lee Friedlander, who Joel Cohn says, he's also telling you something. He's telling you to look at what you're doing and think about what you're seeing. Anyway, that's what I hoped you would learn today. So I'd like to leave. Now I know my time is up. I would like to have I'd like to answer some questions. If anyone, first of all, I hope you enjoyed today. Was it enjoyable? I hope. Good. I see some clapping. That's good. Good. So let me answer a few questions. I love questions. If you have any questions.
I'm going to see 1 second.
I like that other people say there's a sense of humor. And some of you knew certain photographs, very witty. God, I like your responses. Great choice of artists. Thanks. I'm happy that you like them. Oh my God, my photographs have some of these features. That's interesting too, Judith.
There's an interesting remark here by Kenneth. He says the concept of owning a piece of artwork defeats the whole concept of art about being able to view it up close, to own it.
Wow, that's interesting. Can you go a little further on that? I find that fascinating. What do you mean by owning it? In other words, I believe art should be seen, and if you're lucky enough to have enough money to buy it, I don't think it's bad. In other words, you're getting to see it up close, but owning something is a very interesting concept. In other words, you get to see it all the time. I like that concept. Owning it, I don't know what that means even.
Kenneth, you can try and unmute yourself and try and explain it. No, we can't hear you. I gave you the permission to unmute, but I can see that it's not. Now, go ahead.
The concept of owning, I'm just using that common term in that being able, if you are able to afford a piece of art that you like, that in this, in essence, in the definition is owning, and having it on your wall and sharing it with people is a great delight. Owning is the ability to have it so that you see it all the time, constantly, among all your other pieces of art. Now, it's more of like you're borrowing it, not really that it belongs exclusively to you, as a possession.
By the way, I love that concept, and I'll tell you something funny. There are people I know who want to buy my work, and they say, well, it's a little expensive. I say, you know what? If you promise ad mea esrim, which means until 120, that you give it to a museum, I will sell it to you for less money. And my whole show at the Phillips in Washington was because people donated that work eventually to the museum. So I love that idea. I do believe that I love art moving and going to places that people can see, but I also really think it's great to have the work in your home for quite a while. But I agree with you. People say to me, do you mind selling your work? And I say no, because I want it in the world. And I think all the artists you saw today make work that they want to share. I can't think of anyone I showed you. In fact, since I don't like showing work where artists who don't want the work in the world. I think different people think of what that means in different ways.
We have in our house, besides current, contemporary artists, we also have original Rembrandt etching and a Dürer woodblock. And it's just, it's phenomenal how many people may have owned this piece of art, had it, in their homes, sharing it, and it got passed on to other people, and will pass on to other people, whether it's our children or, whatever the circumstances may be, to enjoy that piece of art. And and we've been to Rembrandt's house, and his intent on creating those pieces of art was that it was going to be available for the people that weren't the very wealthy to be able to have a piece of his art.
So you should know something interesting. I don't know if anyone knows this, and I don't know if, Sophia, you know this. In ancient Chinese scroll painting, the people that own it put a little stamp on there, and you can see how many times. You know this, Sophia? I saw this in the show, and I loved that you were commissioning a piece, your name on a little red stamp was on there, and then it got sold again, and that person, and they would write comments about the work, and that becomes part of the piece. I do find that fascinating. One of the reasons it's so interesting you said that I show the videos. COVID has been interesting, and I now make my students, when we go to see gallery shows, I have them see videos before we go to the show, and then we can discuss it so you know where the artist is coming from. So I do find that fascinating, that many artists want people to see their work, and it's not only for a few people. Very good, interesting conversation.
I think also, thank you for your comments. I think also it's a bit more demanding when we, I'm just going to say hello, and people who don't know me, my background is in art. I'm an art curator now in the Tel Aviv Museum of Art. So I'm not talking just, off my mind, but I'm just saying that art today, and maybe more, contemporary art, needs a bit more from the viewer.
Yes.
So we need to go, when we go, and this is why Tobi's gallery tours are so helpful, because they give you a bit of the background. But in general, I do suggest when you go, and I see all of you that are here, you are art lovers. When we go and see contemporary art, even Tobi and even myself, that we know the art, we still have to do our homework. It's a bit more demanding than just walking into a gallery, the National Gallery, and looking at all the masters or impressionists, which are easy to communicate. But when we see works, let's say like Sarah Meyuhas or those works, that you need to understand what she's talking about and what her background is, and then you get the pleasure of enjoying it furthermore. But it demands from the viewer more than usual.
I also will tell you, and that's, I want to say very importantly that I think you can look at art and say, I like it, I don't like it. You're allowed to do that. That is totally kosher because it's your aesthetic. But I want you to know something. If you ever come to any of the classes I give or lead, I never will show you an artist who I don't think is sincere. Most of the artists that I know would not spend so much time making work unless they had something to say, or you might not like what they have to say, but they are really trying to get their feelings across. So I want to thank all of you. Unless there's another question, I'll say goodbye before everyone has to go. The thing I want to say to you is I can't thank you enough for coming to these programs, because I really prepare it. I spend a lot of time trying to find artists that are very different. I try and pick artists of different ethnic backgrounds, of different ages, of different genders. But the bottom line is I'm trying to play ping pong with your mind. I'm trying you to see like, wow, that person just said the opposite of what the next person is saying, or that person is saying, like, I really liked what Joel Cohen said about Lee Friedlander, that he wasn't trying to, he just wanted to take the pictures he liked. He wasn't trying to think about art history. And you look at somebody like Avedon, he was trying to show you exactly what he was interested in, but he spent a lot of time setting it up. Friedlander doesn't set it up at all. And then you see somebody like Kusama, and her work is just very playful. And then you look at somebody like Luke Toyman, and he has so much knowledge behind him that it's a whole other thing. Joyce has her hand up, so I want to answer that.
Yeah. Could you put in the chat the list of galleries where you showed the artists today?
Yes, we always, so Ari always sends that afterwards. You'll get the whole list with all my videos as well.
Thank you.
It's printed on the top, made for all of you.
Yes, I will send it out. Don't worry, guys. I send it out later on today with a recording of today's session.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much, Tobi. It was amazing, fantastic. Thank you very much for all your efforts. It's very well appreciated. And have a great rest of your day and rest of your week. And wishing you long life on your mother's yahrzeit.
Thank you so much. You guys are the best. It was an honor to be here today.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.